Hello and welcome to our next video. In this lesson, we're going to take the time to just review our contact controller. So if we go up here and get our contact controller open, I'm actually going to just bring this out by holding it, by clicking and holding and then dragging, and then I'm just going to make it maximize on the screen. So what we're going to do is just take a look at what did this controller actually build and why is that important. So the first thing it did was it built the ability to load up the controller, and this is going to be our code that runs anytime we make a request to our application. So these are GET requests. You can see a GET on the contacts. We'll just load up this index, which will essentially initialize our local version of our connection to our database, and it will get all of the contacts to a list and throw them into the view in order to be able to be used and rendered on the page. So the first time we come in to the page, it should pull all of our contacts and it will put them into memory so that when we load up the view for index, we can then list out each of those different contacts. And we'll be taking a look at the views in the next video, so we'll see a little bit more of that at that time. Now, if you want to call to the details, and what you'll note again is every single one of these methods is going to line up with a view name specifically. So we have to have a view named details in order for this to work. We have to have a view named index in order for this to work. And we do have those. Those were all created by scaffolding. So we throw in the details. We need an ID of the specific one that we want to view. So it's going to pass that in, and it's going to ultimately find that specific contact using a little link here. So this is going to be link against the entity framework. We're going to get the DB, the contacts table or data set or whatever you want to call it, DB context for our contacts web. And then it's going to go out and find the contacts table. And inside the contacts table, it's going to run a find operation for that ID. It will then return if it's not found, or it will throw the single contact into the view, and the view can render the details for that one specific contact. And again, that's going to be on the details page. And note the URL is a GET request. So it's going to be our default root URL, whatever that is, /contact, /details, /whatever ID. Here it's just /contacts or /contacts /index. If we want to create, the first create is just going to render our create view, and then we'll have to have a post action. So for creating and editing, of course, and deleting, we'll need to have a post action so that the page knows how to respond to our request. Here we're going to create. So the first thing it renders is a view, but if we get a create on a post request, it's going to say, oh, you're actually trying to create it at this point. And so we see it's named exactly the same, but the difference between these two is that this is a post and this is a get. So depending on the HTTP method that we're using, whether it's get or post or put or whatever it might be, that's going to determine how this page reacts. And it says, oh, if it's a get method, let's just render the create view. If it's a post method, let's render the create view, but we're expecting them to send in all the information about the contact as a contact. And we'll basically add that to our database, save the changes, and then redirect back to index where we'll list all of our contacts, and you should see the new one that we added. If for some reason there's an error on the page, we'll just return the same view for creating with the contact that, as we have it, if possible, or it will basically just store the same state that you had and probably give you an error, such as the birth date is not valid, or whatever it might be. Editing is going to, again, point to the edit view, and we'll see that in a moment. Contact /edit, and then an ID that we want to actually edit. So here we need a specific one. Of course, it has to be able to find it in our database table. If it can't find it, it returns not found. If it does, it renders the edit view with that contact, and if the contact is there, it fills in the information. We can then save it, and we can say, oh, this is an edit on a post action, and we save it, and it finds the entry that we're looking for, sets it to modified, saves the changes, and redirects us back to the index so that we can see that change has happened. So you can see the good thing is that all of this coding is done for us. We didn't have to write any of this. And so the wiring up with the scaffolding has basically handled all the CRUD operations for us, and we don't even really have to know how that works, even though we should. And so that's kind of why we're going over it here. Deleting, it's going to be following the same pattern. You get by ID, it shows the object, and then you say, okay, I want to go ahead and delete that one by posting. When you do, it says, you basically confirmed you want to do it, so good. We're going to remove it, save changes, and return you back to the index. And then down here is just a dispose on the class to just clean things up for the database. So That's really all there is to the context controller at this point. The cool thing is if we decide we want to add more views on top of contacts, we can simply do that by creating new action results here and having the name match the view that we're trying to render. Or we can make changes in this code to handle how the page responds when we get those get and post requests on the different views. And that wraps up our look at the context controller. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.